Welcome back, everybody, to the first edition of Slam Talk SuperCoach for 2026. Welcome back to Slam Talk Sports. I am Slam. Yes, I am. You know where to find me. Slam Talk Sports on Instagram, TikTok, and on X. But today, we are talking about my favorite game in the world. Yes, AFL SuperCoach. It is finally open. Let's unpack and feast into what should be a tasty preview episode of my current round one or opening round team. Not that opening round counts. It is absolutely a disgrace. Now, before you see my team, as you can look at it right now, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to quickly clear it and explain to you my picks one by one for the 2026 AFL season. Let's start with the back line. Now, there's a lot of contention out there right now is, what are your structures looking like? Are you pumping money into your back line? Are you trying to stuff your mids full of possession-y scoring goodness? Or do you go the tried and true formula, get two absolute premium rucks, hope they both average 130, and set your team up around those two monolithic giants carrying your side? Well, I've got a different strategy this year than going the two ultra premium rucks and potentially a third ruck in the flex, and I'll show you right now. But let's start with the back line. I think Nazaya Wanganeen Millera, yes, Nazaya the Messiah, is a great pick for SuperCoach in 2026. Now, he's priced at $622,000. It is at the absolute top end for a defender. I mean, the next closest defender is his teammate Jack Sinclair at $606,000. Nazaya has an early bye. Nazaya plays in opening round. But I cannot see a way he doesn't average over 110 for the season. This man simply went to another level in the second half of 2025. I don't know if he was bitten by a radioactive spider. Somehow he was spelunking down a cave and he came back up with magical powers, because he became a different beast altogether in the second half of last season. I know he's priced at $622K, but I think Nazaya is just so good that we can back him in to be a top 3 defender, even if he loses a little bit of money and suffers a little bit of loss in form. He plays the best role in SuperCoach. This halfback flanker who can be thrust into the midfield and even go forward and kick clutch goals is the best role you can hope for. And with this new last possession rule, I can see Nazaya just chopping up even more off the halfback line. I think he's a great selection. Now, if you don't want to pay top dollar, I understand you might want to put someone like Connor Rozee as your D1. I can rationalise with that. I think that's not the worst strategy, but at some point you're going to need Nazaya. Now, whether you pay $50K less, that might be your strategy, but I think I want the top liners already set in place from day dot, and we figure out the other names, the other performers around that. Having said that, I don't mind the person I just mentioned, Connor Rozee, to be my D2. Now, Rozee is priced at $568,000. He's not cheap, but I think he's still below what he probably should be. He should be close to a $600K defender. I say that because new coach Josh Carr has assured us that he will stay in that half-back role. There'll be other moving magnets, other moving pieces at Port Adelaide. Now, the thing about Rozee, you see 105 average, you think, okay, that's great. That doesn't rock my world. That doesn't blow my literal socks off. Well, it's not quite the full story. Rozee, before he suffered what was a hand fracture against West Coast, in which he scored 60 in that game, he was averaging closer to 110. And around that time, the arse fell out of Port Adelaide's season. Well, the front fell off and the back fell off. Their season fell apart, injuries mounted up, and quite literally, Port were getting spanked. They had the belt provided to their proverbial ass for the better part of the last 2 months of the year. So it was harder to score points in that Port Adelaide team, considering their performances and the fact Rozee was playing hurt. If he wasn't playing for Pride, he wasn't playing for his good old friend Ken Hinkley, he might have sat out earlier than that. So I think Rozee, with his tantalising, tasty early fixture, and the fact he's a rolled gold star, and the fact he has a similar role to Nazaya, where he might go into the midfield, or he might go into the half-forward line, where he's an All-Australian, and flip games in the fourth quarter. I really love Connor Rozee. He's the captain of that footy club, so he'll never be rested. Never any worry about him playing, really, because he played hurt last year. He loves playing. he's a great selection in your SuperCoach defenses. Let's go to D3. Now, structures have changed. I've seen different names thrown up here. Now, the person that I like is someone who people have got a little bit cold on in the last 2 weeks. Yes, it is Colby McKershaw from the North Melbourne Football Club. Now, I like Colby because he's well priced. He's priced at $449,000. That to me seems like a discount on his projected production. Colby McKershaw should average 95 plus. I think he could even average 100. In the back half of last season, when he got that halfback role, the first game against West Coast, he dropped like 130 points. And before you say slam, that's effing West Coast. They suck. I will say you are absolutely correct. They are the worst. But in that whole 10-week, 12-week stretch where he was a halfback flanker, he produced closer to 100 points. And that is with him developing and transitioning to a new role. Now, we've had track watchers out at Arden Street, and they've said, McKershaw, he might be thrust into the midfield similar to Harry Sheezel this season. I don't believe that to be correct. Now, there might be points, there might be moments where he's put into the midfield similar to Rosie, similar to Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller, where he can help flip games, provide a little point of difference to North's midfield. But in reality, he's going to be used as a smooth-moving, high-possession halfback flanker in 2026. I love McKershaw, I like the role, and I like the fact that we're getting a discount of probably 100,000-ish on what his potential could be. He averaged 83 last year playing in the wing, playing in the midfield through the first 10 to 12 weeks. So that's not his true average. His true average should be closer to 100. I'm picking Lockie McKershaw right now. Oh, Lockie McKershaw? No, that would be Lockie Whitfield. He's not on my team right now. That's a hot tip. That is a little bit of a slam secret. We have Colby McKershaw locked in to D3. Let's move forward to the rest of the back line. There's a couple of players that haven't played a lot of football, which will comprise the next three names in my back six. We start with Caden Coleman from the Brisbane Lions Football Club. Now, Caden Coleman, average of 72 from just the one game. However, we know what the production is possible from this man. We know what he can do if he's given the keys to that Brisbane Lions defense. The issue for me is not the injury. We are now 18 months, removed from that ACL. The soreness which he developed in the second half of last season and the fact Brisbane was so loaded were one of the key reasons why he couldn't break back into that team. His body was not right and Brisbane were flying, particularly up the half-back line with Dane Zorko and Jasper Fletcher. But now Zorko's a little bit older. We've seen the likes of Ainsworth get injured. We've seen Starchevitz leave the club. There's spots in that back six, even off like the wing, off the interchange, where we could see Coleman make an impact. And at 233 grand, his price to average 43 points. He's not going to average 43 points, okay? This man can absolutely rack it up. Cast your mind back to the 2023 grand final. I know that's a long time ago. That's a lot of meals. That's a lot of beers. That's a lot of failed relationships since then, okay? That was 2 years ago. At that time, he got 100 points in the first half of the grand final. I mean, he can rack it up. He's a smooth mover. He loves to kick the football. And for the first 6 weeks, just stay on the park. Give us 70s. Give us maybe some 80s. And we'll be rolling in the cash. We'll be like Scrooge McDuck. We won't know what to do with it. We'll have that much cash on us. We'll be like trying to, take it over international borders, strapped to our chest. That's how much cash Caden Coleman could make us if he stays healthy. Let's move forward to our D5. Now, this is a high draft pick from this past season. I'm going with Zeke Euland from the Gold Coast Suns Football Club. Euland should get his opportunity early in the year, particularly on a wing. Now, picking young players at a high price is not something you should always do unless you think there is a role that's being afforded to them. With Zeke Euland, his brother Bodie also plays for the Gold Coast Suns, but with Zeke Euland, I think a role on the wing could easily be captured by him in the early parts of the season. I say that because Braden Fiorini left the Gold Coast Suns to join Essendon, and he was one of their wingmen in the back half of last season. We now see him depart. Euland was a top 5 draft pick. He's a smooth mover. I've said that 100 times, but he truly is a tremendous kicker of the football, and he can have an impact early days with the Gold Coast Suns. People like Cal Toomey, who know the draft far better than I do, had him at pick 1 halfway through the year. And that's with him missing close to a year of football, dealing with injury issues. As long as he plays, he is in my team. And on the other side, if he doesn't get picked, and someone like Dylan Patterson was to get picked, you can easily transition between the two. Patterson was a top draft pick, also playing off the halfback line, also a great run and carry player who could rack up possessions on the Gold Coast Suns. Right now, I don't know if he will play in the very start of the season. I've got more confidence in the Ulan, which is why I picked Ulan, but don't be afraid to transition in the preseason. That's why we've got the next 50 days. Finally, at D6, to fill in my on-field side, I have Sarong, but it is not Caleb, it is Jai, his brother, who now plies his trade with the Sydney Swans. He was picked up in the offseason to fill a role playing a key back or interceptor type for the Sydney Swans. 119,000. He should be an on-field option. He should be able to get us hopefully 55 to 65 points a week if he's playing. And the Swans sounded him out. They really wanted Jai Sarong's services. He was back-to-back best and fairest winner at Box Hill. He couldn't quite break into Hawthorn's team, which acquired the services of Josh Battle and of Tom Barras. What was that bird he plays with? The Willie Wagtail? Yeah. Tom Barras, he has been a very good player for Hawthorn, and so has Josh Battle, who was an All-Australian last season, which is why Jai Sarong couldn't break into their team, but he's broken into our Supercoach size. I think he's a very nice D6 selection. And finally, on the bench, we're going to pop in Josh Lindsay from the West Coast Eagles, and we're also going to pop in Gibcus. Yes, Joshy Gibcus from Richmond. Now, I think we've all had Gibcus for the last 3 seasons. Persistent knee issues has been why he's been unable to get on the park. But 139,000, I think we can pick him. Richmond will play the kids. And God, he's just too cheap. Give him a chance. Get him out on the park. And Josh Lindsay, while he was going to be a top 10 draft pick in this year's draft, but he kept sliding and sliding. And I think he found the perfect home for super coaches. Whether he wants to play in Western Australia, I don't know. But we'd love to have him in our Supercoach team for $122,000. He is a high kick player. He's someone who could play similar to an Alex Witherden type role when he broke onto the scene at Brisbane and then at West Coast. He was still a good scorer at West Coast. I just think that when someone's such a good user of the footy and your team is so dearth of talent and good ball users, that he could have a role early in the season. Now, we think Elliot Yeo, crazy mentioning his name in 2026. He could be the distributor of the half-back line for West Coast, but they can find a role for little Josh Lindsay to maybe replace Tom McCarthy's production in that area of the field, then he could be a very viable selection for your bench to start the season. Let's move to the midfield, or the engine room, where we score all our points in AFL Supercoach. Now, my rule of thumb generally has been to pick 1 or 2 absolute star mids, then probably pick 1 or 2 guys that I think are underpriced for the season that I think will have very strong seasons, and then probably find 1 or 2 mid-price guys who have been a premium before, or I think are very likely to have premium production or make us $150,000 or somewhere in that realm. Firstly, let's start with the super premium rolled gold VCC option every single week. And it is Mr. Zach Butters from the Port Adelaide Football Club. Butters averaged 120 points last year. He's one of the best players in Supercoach. I don't need to tell you that. But give me 1 second while I burp. Now, Zach Butters has a great early fixture. Zach Butters, in the first 4 weeks, he plays... Oh, no. That can't be real. This can't be his actual fixture. To start 2026, Butters' first opponent is North Melbourne at Marvel. Then it's Essendon at the Adelaide Oval. Then it's West Coast at the Adelaide Oval. Then it's Richmond at the MCG. Then it's Saints at the Adelaide Oval. And then it's the leaky Hawthorn midfield at Marvel Stadium. We need Port Adelaide players because they have such a blessed, kissed run to start the season. Having said all of that, Zach Butters is a super duper 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 star, so we need him anyway. Averaging 120 last season. That's with an arthroscopic knee surgery to start the year, which meant that he didn't start the season until like round 3 or 4. Imagine what he could have done with a full pre-season. It potentially is Butters last year in Port Adelaide. I think similar to what Patrick Dangerfield did back in 2015, at his last year at the Crom, that he could put together an all-Australian Brownlow level year. So I want to lock in Zach Butters as my M1. At M2, now it gets a little bit more contentious. I'm not going to spend up for Marcus Bontempelli right now. I say that because $700K is a lot of money. I personally have a rule where I don't pay $700K for anyone. Unless it's prime Max Gawn and the options aren't really good around him, or it's Gary Ablett Jr. in like 2009, 2012, just carrying the Gold Coast Suns on both his shoulders until Brett McCaffrey explodes them, derailing the club for 10 years. Unless it's that man, then I won't be picking someone at $700,000. But who I will pick is the whispering one. Shh, Nick Dacos is in at M2. The reason why I'm picking Nick Dacos is because we've got flexibility. We can see his game in opening round. They play against the Saints in the last game of this godforsaken round. And if he goes at 130, we're going to pick him because it's Nick Dacos. The game and how it's changed with his last possession rules, with less contest, more of a transition game, I think will help Dacos. He's a runner, one of the best runners in the competition. He's gone 116, 117 the last 2 years. That's with tags along the way. A little bit more help breaking those tags, and also the natural progression of Dacos now entering his prime years. I see him averaging closer to 120. I think it's a Brownlow Brownlow winning level year for Nick Dacos. So I want him in my starting side, and we can assess during opening round. Then at M3, I have Mr. Anderson. Noah Anderson joins the fold. Also with an early buy round. The reason why I like Anderson, again, he's a transition beast. I think these new rules will help him. But also, we're entering the prime years of Noah Anderson. We just saw him have a fantastic year where he had the most votes in the Brownlow over the last 3 months. Only averaged 114, but he came home cooking. Like he did. He was an absolute monster in the back half of the year. And their fixture is tasty. If you want to pick Matthew Rowell, I'm not going to begrudge you. Matthew Rowell averaged pretty similar last year. I mean, Rowley averaged 118, so he's a little bit better. Anderson averaged 114. I just think that there could be a slight more. How do I put it? I don't think the gap between Rowell and Anderson will be that large this year. And we saw Rowell maybe taper off slightly at the end of the year and Anderson get better as the year went on. But you're splitting hairs between these two. And as I said, the fixture for the Gold Coast Suns to start the year is just so blessed. It's so kissed, similar to Port Adelaide. Obviously, opening round, that doesn't count for Supercoach. But then we've got West Coast, over in West Coast, over in Perth. Then we've got Richmond. Then we've got Melbourne. Those 3 rounds, Anderson and Rowell, might absolutely erupt. And then they both have Essendon in round 6 and that linky Hawthorn midfield in round 7. Very strong start for the Gold Coast Suns. And they're a team, if they get momentum, I could see them winning 15, 14, 16 games. That's how strong I think they'll be in 2026. So I want one of their players in the midfield, whether that's Rowell or whether that's Anderson. Let's move forward to my M4. Now, another player which has the early buy. I just want to establish a rule going forward when it comes to picking players that have the early buy and ones that don't. If you truly love a player and believe in them for 2026, then you pick that player. It doesn't matter if they have an early buy. I'm picking Finn Callaghan here. I'm picking Noah Anderson, and I'm picking Nick Dacos. I think they'll all have fantastic seasons. They're all in their prime years. They all have the opening round. They all have early buys. That's going to hurt in that round. But over the rest of the season, I'm going to be laughing if they're good. You know why? Because I didn't worry about one round in March ruining my entire Supercoach season. Pick the players you like, because if they're good, they might average 5 to 6 more points than the people that played opening round. That won't give you any advantage. You're going to have the better players in the long run. Stick to your heart, stick to your gut. And that is why I picked Callaghan, because Callaghan, he's priced to average 111, but he jumped about 30 average last season. What did Callaghan average in 2024? Callaghan averaged 82, and then he jumped to 112. So a 30-point jump. And I think he can get even better because he's getting even more CBAs. In their finals loss to Hawthorn, he had, 91% CBAs. He's the man. He signed a mega contract, and the transition game will help him even more. I also don't think you can really tag the man. He's an absolute monster. Out of Tom Green and Finn Callahan, they're both very good Supercoach options, but I just think that at the contest, what are you going to do with Finn Callahan? He's going to run away from you. He's a transition beast. I love the profile of Finn, but he is not locked into my team. I think Butters, Dacos, and Anderson, I feel stronger about just because of their body of work than I do with Finn Callahan. But right now, he's in there at M4, my apologies. We have another cut price option in this team, someone that will be very popular amongst Supercoach. His name is Hayden Young. Oh, forever young. I want to keep Hayden Young. Probably work on those lyrics. But Hayden Young at $390,000 is priced to average 72. That includes games where he dropped 100 last year, but also exploded his hammy after about 10 minutes. He is such a risky option, but you know the production is out of this world if he stays on the park. I mean, a price to average of 72, he won't average that. He'll average closer to 100 if he's exposed to midfield minutes, if he gets his body right. He's a lethal left boot. He can hit the scoreboard as well, which is great for Supercoach. And also, he's probably the third midfielder in that group behind Caleb Sarong and Andrew Brayshaw. Like, he's not going to get a lot of attention. He's going to freewheel, hit the scoreboard, and really do what he wants in Freo's early part of the fixture. And I like that fixture as well. One, because there is no early buy, but two, because it's not that difficult. I mean, Freo just made finals last year, so it's not like they're going to be playing one of the all-time difficult fixtures to start their season. If I can get it up right here. They go Geelong, Sydney, West Coast, Western Bulldogs, Richmond, and Melbourne. I mean, West Coast, Dogs, Richmond, Melbourne, all non-finalists from last season. Not exactly a sticky slope for Fremantle. I like Youngie for this season. I also like my man, friend of the Time On podcast, Mr. Darcy Parish. Now, Parish has been a burn man in the last few seasons. You know why? Because he's barely played any sort of football. DP3 is priced at $334,000. That is so cheap for someone who can average 100 plus. Back in 2021, Darcy Parish averaged 114 points in what was his breakout year. The following season, 110 points. 2023, 108 points. He's a walking 105. He just needs to be on the park. He's 28 years old. But that's the issue. What I just said, he cannot get on the park. Last year, he played 3 games. That is why he is at that price. But in those 3 games on limited minutes, dealing with injuries, he averaged 89. People are hoping to get 89 out of Hayden Young or George Wardlaw and say that's a successful pick. Well, Darcy Parish does that in his sleep. He just does. I'm a Bombers fan. Do I think Parish should have got that long extension? Is he worth it? Probably not at this stage. Considering how many midfielders they have at Essendon and considering the level of production or lack of production since his injuries the last 2 seasons, absolutely not. But is he underpriced massively considering what he can do? Absolutely yes. $334,000 for Parish. I'm putting him in my team. He just needs to stay on the park. That's all he needs to do. Now, it's easy to say that about a lot of footballers. It's a tough sport. I mean, it's an impact injuries happen, let alone soft tissue injuries, but Parish is up and running. He's in full training right now. I believe a healthy Darcy Parish makes Essendon better, and they believe that too, which is why he'll be straight in the midfield. He won't be playing in a back pocket like Zach Merritt, okay? He won't be forced to play on a half-forward line like Sam Durham. He can only really play one position. That's in the guts. Pick Darcy Parish if he's healthy. Let's go on to our M7. M7 will be the number 1 draft pick, Willem Dersma for the West Coast Eagles, priced to average. Well, what would Willem Dersma be priced to average? At $200,000. Well, I'm not good at maths, guys, but at $200,000, he's priced to average somewhere, in the 30s or the 40s? He's going to be way better than that. I found that the number 1 draft pick often produces as a rookie. Harley Reid, Sam Walsh, if they're midfielders, Matt Rao for the few games which he was healthy, they're going to produce because they're going to be put in a position where they can score well. Someone invests that high draft pick in you, they want you to succeed. It's simple. It's that simple. And the reason why you're that high draft pick is because you're bloody good at football. So let's see it, Willem. Okay, let's see it. You're in at M7. We go to M8. And finally, the man who should be in everyone's team, Mr. Jagger Smith. He's in 74% of sides right now, probably because he is $119,000. Don't need to explain this one very much. Top 3 pick for Carlton, only 18 months ago. He's a beast. He's a great ball winner. He wins it all over the park. I think his junior numbers were some of the best we've ever seen. And simply, Carlton aren't very good. So he's going to have whatever crack he wants in those guts to make an impact. Everyone, just pick Jagger Smith. Not much more explanation is needed. Let's go to our midfield bench. Now, I will say this. This doesn't matter right now. Here, as we sit on January 21st, your midfield bench doesn't matter a heap because it will change. It is so team dependent. Now, your structures will probably stay the same for most of the preseason. You'll have your convictions. You'll have the things you believe in and will die on. But the defensive bench, the midfield bench, your ruck and forward bench, that will change based on team selections. I'm just going to pop Dyson Sharp into my midfield bench. And before you blow up and say, Slam, why isn't he on your field? I'm not sure what his role is, what his time on ground is to start the year. Say we want about Essendon's team. They've got a lot of midfielders. You've got Parrish, who's never healthy at the moment. You've got Merritt, who didn't play midfield all of last year. You've got Durham, who missed portions of the season. You've got Caldwell, who missed portions of the season. They're all healthy. They're all going to be ahead of Dyson Sharp. Can Essendon's 5th midfielder produce on-field scoring in SuperCoach as an 18-year-old? Perhaps. But I'm comfortable having him on my bench, having him there for depth. He might supplant Dersma. We might move him out for someone cheaper. But for now, I've got Dersma sitting as my first bench midfielder. Next to him, we'll be putting Josh Smiley from the Richmond Football Club. Now, Smiley, similarly a contested beast, didn't play at all last year after being a high draft pick 2 years ago. If he's healthy, he's got those soft tissue injuries in order, he's a very strong selection for your midfield bench. And to finish it off, well, I see a lot of Will Brodys out there. I've been told by 5 names, Simeon Thomas Wilson from the Phantom's Lair podcast, that he's not an option, that he might play rounds 1 and 2 and then be dropped once Ollie Wines returns from suspension. So I'm scratching my head. Who am I going to pick for my final midfield spot? I think for now, let's put in someone like, let's just put Brody, for example. We'll put Brody in for now, or we might even put McRae in because I like having a DPP in my midfield just because it helps with flexibility down the road. At some point, it's going to be helpful. It's going to be something that's an asset to you, but we could change that as we get closer to the season starting. But that's my midfield bench. Sharp, Smiley, McRae. Now let's get stuck into the bit you're all wondering about, the ruck line. It is the line that defines SuperCoach in many ways. If you get these wrong, you're in big strife. I'm going to pick the big X. I think we have to pick Tristan Xerri this season. Now, I know the ruck rules have changed. There's less stoppages. He's someone that heavily relies on tackling, contested possessions, and simply grabbing it out of the ruck because he is a beast of a footballer. Having said all that, I think his early fixture is too good to ignore. Let's look at his run for the first 6 weeks of the season for 2026. He starts against Port Adelaide. So looking at Dante Vicentini or Jordan Sweet. Should be pretty easy. Then West Coast, who we murdered last season. Then Essendon, who'll have Blackiston or maybe Nick Bryan or maybe Vicentini as their ruck. Then Carlton, who'll have Pitane or Liam Reedy. Brisbane, who he destroyed last year, and Richmond, who he destroyed last year. Even though he's $687,000, he'll probably lose money, only require a couple of bad games, no early buy, and that ruck run makes me want to pick Tristan Xerri. I know he's capable of dual 180s to end last year, so we know how clutch he is in the big games. He's a great captaincy option, obviously, so X is in my side. Do I pick Max Gawn as well? I've decided against it, which might seem sacrilegious, that might seem haram, that might seem sinful to not pick Max Gawn. I'm doing it because of the ruck rule changes, because I see Melbourne really struggling this season, because Oliver and Petrarca have left. That's his left and right-hand man, depending which way you want to tap the football. They're great players, at least they have been with Max Gawn. Will he be able to figure it out with Harvey Langford, with Caleb Windsor, with Jack Steele, with whoever's rolling through there, the corpse of Jack Viney? Probably. But I don't think it'll be as effective as it was with those two great inside midfielders, and I see Melbourne sliding back. And I just don't know if Max Gawn is going to have a peak Max Gawn year. I don't want to count him out. He might find his way into this team come March 1st or 2nd, but I just think that the way the game is changing, I don't want to pay top dollar for two ruckmen. I think there's a man who is about to erupt due to these changes, and I want to partner him next to Tristan Sherry. And that is the dogger, Mr. Luke Jackson. Averaged 113 last season. I see him elevating once again. He's a great transition player. They've brought in Mason Cox to hopefully do even more ruck duty, get Sean Darcy out of the bloody side and let Jackson go wild as a third or fourth midfielder. They don't have the early bye. The bridge between Jackson and Gawn is 14 points right now. But when Luke Jackson was full Luke Jackson, uninhibited by Sean Darcy, free to play a freewheeling ruck role where he would go forward and kick goals, I thought he was a 130-pluser. I think he's as good as Gawn and Sherry if he's given the keys to the Fremantle side. Will that happen? I'm not sure. But right now, based on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, I think Jackson could be the one. But I'm going to leave a bit of money behind so we can transition back to the old guard of Gawn and Sherry if we have to. Because that is so proven, it's tried, it's tested. It's what got me top 1,000 last year. But I've just got a feeling that Luke Jackson is cooking up something special for 2026. He's in the side as we sit here right now. And my bench ruck, well, I think it has to be the man at Carlton, Mr. Liam Reedy. Now, Reedy was behind Jackson and Darcy at Fremantle, so he's begging for some opportunity. Owned by 66% of sides right now, he's a great DPP option as a ruck forward. He's basement price, and if Mark Pinnay got injured or they went with a dual ruck setup, then Liam Reedy's your guy. He's going to make us a little bit of cashola. Very happy to have him as your ruck 3. Also can use him as a rolling loop and a 0. He could be your captain most weeks even without playing. How amazing is that? Let's go to the forward line. In the forward line is a man I want, is a man I know. His name is Harry Sheezel. Yes, I want to watch Shees TV all season long. 107 average last year, but he did pop off towards the end of the season. He's now playing in the midfield at North Melbourne. We don't have to worry about him sitting around the half-forward line waiting for some hack kicks to get him the football. He's going to extract it himself. I love Sheezel. He's the clear number 1 forward for this season. And as you can see, there's not many great options in the forward line. Isaac Rankin is suspended to start the year. Nick Martin is out for the entire season. Riley Thilthorpe's a key forward. And then we've got the likes of Christian Petrarca and Sam Darcy. At this moment, I've picked neither. I just want to go real skinny in my forward line. I may have packed on the kilos over the summer, but my forward line will be nice and thin. Not too much money spent in what is an area that I truly dislike in SuperCoach. Very rare do you have 3 or 4 standout forward options to start the year. This is another one of those seasons where I don't want to spend up in an area that I don't think it's clear who the best players are. I'd rather wait maybe 6 to 8 weeks, bide my time, save that cash for my midfield, my rucks and my defence, and then figure out who the best forwards are for this season. So my forward 2 will be Sam Flanders, who's a very popular pick. Everyone's going to pick Flanders. Averaged 119 at the Suns 2 years ago in a freewheeling halfback midfield role. Now he's at St Kilda. Hopefully he's afforded the same opportunities under Ross Lyon. Price to average 73. He should average closer to 100 in my opinion. I think he's a nice F2 because he's 400k. He's not ridiculously priced, but I think he can carry the load of a forward 2 to start the season. At F3, I have his counterpart down in St Kilda, Mateus Philippou, who should operate opposite maybe on a half-forward flank, get some midfield minutes as well. Philippou is priced to average 35 points. He will not average 35 points. He averaged 35 due to multiple issues last year. Now, did he have Achilles tendonitis? Did he have, I think, a sternum injury as well over the last 2 years? He's going to average closer to 60 plus. He averaged 58 2 seasons ago when he was healthy. So I think St Kilda are going to have a lot of time for this young man who was a former top 10 draft pick. I think you can bank on him to play as long as he's healthy. I've said that a million times, but it is all about health in this game. Lock him into F3. He's going to get his opportunity at the Saints, and he plays opening round, so we get a good look at him and see what he's capable of. At F4, I'm putting in Toddy Marshall from the Port Adelaide Football Club. Now, Todd Marshall, you know him as a second or third tall forward down at Alberton, but he has now transitioned himself to a half-back flanker, maybe an intercepting defender, because he is 147,000, but he could be absolute gold for us if he's playing across the half-back line. Now, we know he's removed from an Achilles injury, but that happened last year in the preseason, so we're 12 months on from that. Hopefully, Marshall will be fit and firing come round one. Price to average 30. We're open for a 60 to 65 average from this man. I think he is a lock. Yes, he is a lock if healthy for this season. We move forward to my F5. Now, the F5, the old Brock Lesnar position, I've got Sid the Kid Draper. This is risky. I know this is damn risky, but Adelaide not crying out for a midfielder. Adelaide not crying out for some class. The sub rule is gone. He was the poster child for the sub rule. Dan Curtin is injured. They need midfield grunt. Rankin's missing round one. Let's see what Draper's got against those Magpies. I don't think the Pies midfield is as good as they think. Insert Sid the Kid, top 3 draft pick for a reason. 126k, and he played 10 games last year. So it's not like he's coming out of the wilderness. He's been behind the woodshed, and they've got his lifeless body, and they're throwing it on the midfield. He played 10 games, just a heavily sub-affected games. I like Draper. If he can get over this little pre-season injury, then he should absolutely be in Adelaide's best 22. And to finish off the forward line, well, there's a lot of options. I mean, I've got enough money to afford someone like a Jamara Ugle-Hagan that the Phantom's throwing up. What do you think of Jamara? Just think and ponder for 5 seconds while I take a sip of water. Yeah, he's a pretty crazy person. He went off the rails last year. Didn't play a single game of AFL football. Do we think he's a viable Supercoach option? Not at this point. I'll need to see a ripping preseason game. I'll need to see him showing some amazing things and some great reports coming out from the Gold Coast Suns camp to entertain Mara for this year. So I'm going to go a bit cheaper. I'm going to go with Dev Robertson from the West Coast Eagles. Now, obviously, he was at the Brisbane Lions last season, wasn't afforded much opportunity there, only the 4 games. He's in half the sides right now. He should play. I mean, realistically, he should play. West Coast needs some decent midfielders. They need some support for Harley Reid. Elliot Yeo maybe comes back. Does he play mids? I don't know. But Dev Robinson has been begging for this chance for years. He goes back to Western Australia. He goes back home. You got to play him in front of that home crowd. I think he's going to have a decent season for West Coast if he gets the opportunity. Now we go to the bench. Now the bench is difficult because we don't really know who's going to play right now. So I'm going to slot in some names I think could have an impact if given the opportunity. I'm going with Harvey Harrison from the Collingwood Football Club. Now, Harvey suffered an ACL injury 2 seasons ago. He hasn't played since. But if you look at his scores during that season, they weren't that bad. They really weren't that bad at all, considering there's an 8-point game in there that's ACL affected. And also, he was sub-affected in some of those games as well. So, he had... that can't be right. That can't be right. We're going to go back to 2024. We didn't play in 2025. Come on, Slam. He dropped an 83 against the Blues, dropped a 99 against Freo. He kicked 3 goals a game, I think. Also got a 70 and a couple of 50s in there. I think if he's given the opportunity with Bobby Hill out and with Collingwood having an aging list, trying to bring through youngsters, he's someone they need to play early in the season. If his body's okay, I think Harrison's a pretty decent selection. Now, finally, who are we going to pick to round out our forward bench? It's a difficult one. There's no one, I think, that's clear and obvious. So I watched the Centre Bounce show podcast hosted by my good friend Joe, and also part of the fabulous Fancast Productions over there. He's gone with Latrell Pickett. Yes, Cozzy Pickett's cousin at 145,000. That's interesting. He's very classy. He's silky even. Will he play early and will he score well? I'm opposed to small forwards. I know he might be more than that, but I just can't be enthused at 150,000 for a small forward. But then who do we pick? I mean, you look at Lockie Doverston, another small forward for the Kangaroos, 130,000. He might score 12 each week. You see bloody Sammy Stewart there. Yes, Sam Stewart. What's he going to do? Everyone's had Sam Stewart in their life at some point at 125,000, but do you want to get back into bed with Sam Stewart? It's not exactly a good time, I can assure you. So what do we do here? It's just no one. There really is no one that we can trust at a basement price in your forward line unless I'm missing someone. And unless there's someone that's screaming to us like a Reece Unwin or a Matthew Whitlock that says, hold on, you're going to play. Or a Charlie West, who I think might get an opportunity this year. Geez, Taylor Adams is cheap at 185,000 probably for a reason. I think as a placeholder, we're going to chuck in... Let's just chuck in Pickett for now because he's 150,000 and you can pivot off him quite easily. You can use that gather step and pivot off him if you want to. So Latrell Pickett, I don't know what his scoring potential is, but 150k, he allows us to pick pretty much anyone we want in that forward line. If Robertson doesn't get picked or Draper doesn't get picked, we have to move some pieces around. Let's go to the flex. The flex is so crucial. I think what I did with the flex last year enabled me to have a top 1,000 finish, and it wasn't because I did it well at the start of the year. I used Matthew Flynn as a flex. He was good for 2 weeks, and he was dropped, then he came back, and it became a whole headache. So I like to use my flex as a 300k player who can then be used as sort of a trade asset at that salary cap price. I'm not 1,000% in, but based on what we're hearing from reports, Lachlan Blackiston, yes, Blackie will be the ruckman for Essendon to start the season. That's because he's been recruited to play ruck for the Bombers. He played full back last year because Lewis Hayes was injured, Zach Reid was injured, Ben Mackay was injured, Jordan Ridley was injured. I mean, I'm sure even the training staff was injured at some point because no one on that team was fit, particularly in the back line. But in reality, Blackiston's a tap ruckman. He's going to be used in that position to start the season. And at 295,000, he's priced to average 54. I'm here to tell you, hot off the presses, Slam Talk Sports, he ain't averaging 54. He's better than that. He's better than that. Now, it's very limited exposed form, but he's a tap ruckman. These guys average 85 to 90 just by breathing. Do you not remember Riley O'Brien taking the reins from Sam Jacobs all those years ago? Don't we remember Lloyd Meek just saying, hey, Ned Reeves, you might be the president's son, but I'm the king around here. I'm the number one ruck. Okay. Once someone gets that opportunity, they thrive. Ruck is not all about the most skilled player. It's talent meets opportunity. And the opportunity is now there for Lachlan Blackiston. And the beautiful thing is, Essendon don't have an early bye. The ruck run isn't disgraceful to start the year. And if all goes well, in week 6, when Lachlan Blackiston might have lost his number one ruck role to Nick Bryan, you know what we do? We trade him to Nick Bryan. Yes, Joe, I know you're listening. This is a great idea. Once Blackiston's made 100k, 125k, whatever it is, and Nick Bryan, who we believe at Essendon is our number one ruck for the future, is ready to go, at 250k, we're going to make money on that trade and then get Essendon's number one ruckman for the next couple of months. I think it's a great idea. I think this is the type of little thing that can give you that little edge to start the season if you know who's going to be given certain roles for the first 6 rounds. That's my team. Nazaya, D1. Rosie, D2. Colby, Kircher. Colby, McKercher, similar to Drake May, is my D3. Kaden Coleman, D4. Zeke Uland, D5. Sarong, D6. Zach Butters, M1. Nick Dacos, M2. Noah Anderson, M3. Finn Callahan, M4. Hayden Young, M5. Darcy Parish, M6. Willem Dersma and Jagger Smith round out my midfield M7 and 8 with Dyson Sharp sitting on the bench thinking, what have I done wrong? In the rucks, we have Tristan Sherry and Luke Jackson. And in the forward line, it is Harry Sheasel, M1. Sam Flanders, Harry Sheasel, F1. Sam Flanders, F2. Matthias Philippou, F3. Todd Marshall, F4. Sid the Kid Draper, F5. The Brock Lesnar, watch out. And Devin Robertson, F6. And in the flex, it is Lachlan Blackiston. That is my team right now as of January 21st. We'll see how it pans out. We're going to be doing this every single week here at Slam Talk Sports. It'll be Slam talking Supercoach, and we'll do a little bit of a deep dive over the coming weeks on a couple of plays that I'm sure you're curious about. You know, maybe even your Nick Newmans. Actually, You don't need to do it. I don't need to do it. The great Abs Magic, the Skodfather, just dropped a little podcast on Nick Newman. Now, I like him too, but he's old and he's off an ACL, and they've just recruited a halfback flanker who they were forced to take on the Kerno deal. So I'm not 1,000% just yet, but we will investigate that over the coming weeks. And there's other players you think, oh, well, what about Bont? Well, Bont's the man. He just had the best year of his career. Well, we can talk about Bont, but we need to talk about the fact they've got an early bye, and that the fact that Marcus Bontempelli's 30 years old and he just had a big injury last year. And do we want to get him cheaper? Can we get him cheaper? Will he eventually have a 60-point game, which he did last year? And people got him for 630 grand and he flew home and won us flags. Can we do that? We'll investigate that over the coming weeks. But until then, hope you enjoyed the podcast. This was Slam. It's good to be back. Footy season is only a couple of weeks away. But until then, get researching, and there's going to be a lot of it. SuperCoach, let's go.